Hey guys, it's Chris here from Chris's Creative Life, and as promised, I'm here with a super fun technique, and we're going to talk a little bit about reinkers. Because as you can see behind me over here, sorry, it's always weird to be like trying to do things backwards. This is my little shelf where all my reinkers sit. So I love reinkers from the standpoint of obviously you can re-ink your ink pads with them, but the other fun thing is that there's lots of techniques that you can still do with them. The bottles actually have Happy Friday, absolutely. Hey Kim, re-inkers have a ton of ink in them, so I don't actually know that anybody could go through their whole bottle of re-inker. So there's like some really fun things you can do with them, tons of techniques and ways to play with them. And the fact that a re-inker is obviously on palette with all of the cardstocks and ink pads, obviously, because they all coordinate. Sometimes it's fun to have a few, even you don't have to have them all, but even to just have a few to play with and have some like fun with, do a few techniques, etc. So a few weeks ago, I was playing around, looking for something fun to do. Playing with product is absolutely one of my favorite things to do. So I created this card using the technique I'm going to show you today. And this obviously features the Love Notes collection. And this is a Valentine's Day card, and we are currently past Valentine's Day. You could still use this card in other ways, obviously, but you might need to save it if you want to use it for Valentine's Day till next year. So I had a play with it though, and I've created a couple of different versions. Probably if you looked at the thumbnail before the video, I also did a Let's Party one. So I'm going to show you that one today. And I thought it would be fun to create one using the stamp of the month for February, which is called Say It With Flowers, because it is a great stamp set. And to pair it with the Sweet Memories collection, which is like the feature collection from Close to My Heart during the month of February. So I thought we would mesh those two things together, grab some re-inkers, and let's play. Okay, I'm going to add my desk in now, and I'm going to turn up the overhead light so you can see a little bit more. I'm going to move my keyboard out of the way because I don't think I should need that anymore. Okay, so let's turn up some lights. Here's some fun. Maybe I need to actually zoom in here just a little bit so you can see things a little bit bigger. Okay. So, like I said, this was the original one I created, and then I did different versions of it, right? So this one is Love Notes, and it's got Love Notes paper and then coordinating cardstock, and then I did this re-inker technique on White Daisy cardstock. I'm going to do it today on White Daisy cardstock too. Basically, I'm just going to paint with them. So lots of times you see people play with like your stamp pads, because you can do painting with your stamp pads and like a water brush to get on palette colors. But I wanted a stronger color, so I actually used straight re-inker and then a normal paintbrush. So that's what we're going to play with today. So I also created a fun Let's Party version with the cupcake, and I had to make the icing glittery, of course. So I did add stickles to the cupcake. But so for this version, I used candy apple, shortbread, and peach. And then for the Let's Party, this is bluebird, candy apple. This line got a little washed out, and then Sundance. And so I thought it was just kind of a fun way to like I said, you're always looking for one more thing to do with your inkers. So today I've cut out some pieces. I actually had to do some of the stuff beforehand because obviously, like when we're talking about a lot of liquid, I had to let some stuff dry, but I'm actually going to do the whole thing with you here. So, and then I will this weekend put up a blog post with like some more up close photos of the cards and maybe some general directions. So last weekend, I actually, as part of my newsletter, did a survey, which was super helpful. So the survey was actually just about resources that my little community might like to see. And so I asked them some general questions about that. And then actually one of the questions was, would you like to see more coordinating blog posts for videos? And the answer, what like the majority said yes. So I actually in the last year have spent, or at least the last 6 to 8 months, tried to put up a blog post to coordinate either with like a group of videos or if there's a technique. So it might not always necessarily be right away. I kind of sometimes have had to go back because obviously upkeeping a blog is a lot of work also. But just so you know, there are actually lots of techniques on my blog already if you're just looking for something fun to putter around and play with. But so, like I said, we're going to create this today. I'm going to try and get a blog post up this weekend. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to just show you some of the things that I have gathered. Okay, so these two backgrounds I did black, and I actually played with the black behind this one before to see, but I did not like it as much with the Sweet Memories. So here is like the black with this paper. And I wanted to use this paper from Sweet Memories because obviously it's got lots of the colors in it, right? Lots of the papers from Sweet Memories had like, were either like this one that had very, like it's obviously got color, but not a ton of color. And I didn't want competing flowers kind of for this card because like I said, I wanted to play with the stamp of the month. So this was the black background, and when I laid everything out, I didn't like it as much. So instead, I have a little bit of a mulberry background that we're going to add there. I did use this thin cut, and as it has sold out now more than twice, I do believe it might have even sold out 3 times since it came out. I'm assuming lots of you have it. If you don't have this, I'm going to actually, you can do a couple of different things. You could just create a frame with your trimmer and cut out the middle. You end up not having the stitching, but you kind of get the same look. You also could have a thin cut in your stash that you could use. We did have an older postage stamp. It was a different shape, but you kind of get the same idea. Any kind of like frame is what I went for. And then this is the other piece I'm going to use from Sweet Memory. See, this one was all sage in the background. But so these are our pieces to get started. And then you can see here, right? One is a heart and one is a circle. And I'll show you. So I just, all of our shaker thin cuts are still in stock and still there. So you could actually use any of these. And that's what I used to create the shape. So like I said, this is the heart one. And then this is the circle. We're going to do another circle today. But now I need to stand up. Sorry. And actually it's funny because there was a few seconds late because I actually thought I was going to sneeze as I went to start the camera. So I think I'm obviously fighting something. So I have my all-purpose mat because we're going to get a little bit messy. This is just my coloring sheet for Say It With Flowers. Because remember, even though I'm going to do like a re-inking technique with it today, and I'm going to color the flowers with re-inker even, you can use other ways you can color these flowers in other ways, like your pencil crayons, your tri-blend markers. So, and then I have a piece of white daisy. This is what we're going to actually paint the reinkers on with. For this card, I decided to use one of the white word strips. These are new from Close to My Heart, very inexpensive and kind of just handy to have in your drawer. I have just like off to the side of, in one of my cubbies behind me, all the different current colors. And so I just pulled out a white one because I figured it'll match. What else do I have? So like I said, if you don't have the postage stamp, you could use like a different frame from a current stamp or thin cut you already have. And if you didn't want to use Sweet Memories, you could also just use the Mix-Ins paper. Like if you didn't want something to compete with so much, you could kind of do something like this. We're going to add, like I said, we're going to add some of the Say It With Flowers. These ones are were just quickly colored with my tri-blends, but you can kind of get the same it's the same design basically, but a different version of it. But we are going to pull out the reinkers and start our reinker version. But you could just keep this in mind if you don't want to play with reinkers and you want to just pull out your tri-blends. So I did grab some of the coordinating die cut shapes too from Sweet Memories, and we might add those to the card. If not, I have some black and white dots that I've colored, and I'm going to add those. Let's move a few things out of there, and let's get started. I'm going to move these cards, and so the circle that I'm going to cut is that one from the shaker card. So through trial and error, playing with this technique, the one thing I will say is you don't want your piece of paper that we're going to paint, because basically we're going to paint with the reinkers onto our white daisy piece of paper. You don't want it like crazy longer than what you're going to cut out from the white daisy, because the longer you have to pull it across, right? So we're literally going to paint with our reinkers. The more you have to pull across, right? You have to remember that as you do this, your reinker, you're using it just like paint, right? So if it's far, and we're just freehanding it. I liked the kind of whimsical haphazard lines that weren't perfectly straight, because you can get a perfectly straight line with like printed paper, right? So I just thought this was kind of a little bit more fun and organic. But so the longer you have to pull across, you have to remember your ink is going to actually like not be in your paintbrush anymore. So I tried to keep this piece of paper not much bigger than the piece of paper I wanted, or the shape I wanted to cut out of it. So here, right, we're going to do a circle. You can see how well loved this shape is. So this piece of paper is not much bigger than the shape I want to cut out of it. So I think this is actually 3 1/4, if I'm not mistaken. So I have just a little bit of extra room. And the reason that, like I said, I wanted to use reinkers versus like just doing the same technique with your stamp pads, which you could, you're going to get more color, and there's obviously more pigment in your reinkers. And like I said, if you've got a bottle of reinker, you're going to have it for a long time. So like I said, we're also going to do 2 different things, because we're going to color the stamped images with our reinkers too, but just slightly different. So for my background colors for my circle that we're going to create, I actually went with Periwinkle, which is a coordinating Sweet Memories color, and Mulberry, which is also a coordinating color. And then I went with Mink. So my matte here, like my thin cut that I cut out the postage stamp, this is Mist. And that's another color. You could use that one if you wanted, but I wanted more of the gray color in the background. So this is actually my circle right here that I created earlier because I needed it to dry. But we're going to do that exact same thing right now. So you can see I've created a thick stripe with just a regular paintbrush. And then I just have used water brushes for the other two. This one seems to have lots of ink on it and actually not even the color I'm playing with, which is interesting. So I'm going to do the Periwinkle and the Mulberry with just my water brushes because I just wanted that thin line, right? So obviously you could see there's tons of things you could create, like all sorts of color coordinating pieces for things that you're working on. So I am going to add my Mink in the middle, or in my dish. And then I'm going to do my Periwinkle. And I'm shaking them up, right? Because you have to remember to get everything moving around in your inkers. And like I said, we're just using a drop or two, right? So you can play with lots of different things with your inkers. So here's a test for you guys. You guys list some of the other things you can do with re-inkers. I've taught some of them on here before, so we'll see how good everybody's memory is. But there are lots of techniques and fun things you can do with re-inker. So I'm going to go and do my wide strip first. And I just have some paper towel here. And what are some of your favorite things to do with re-inkers? I have a favorite one. So I did obviously add a little bit of water just to help it flow. And then this is my Periwinkle, which is much more blue than you would think. I don't know why I thought it would be more purple, but it's actually quite blue. So I'm just gonna leave some space and draw my thin line now. And then my Mulberry. And again, I would just do my thin line. And don't forget too, right, after it dries, it becomes lighter. So that's why I didn't want to do this with stamp pad, right? Because I can show you the difference between then painting with your stamp pad. And you could obviously do this with normal paintbrushes too. I happen to have my water brushes obviously in my office, and all my paintbrushes are downstairs. I did grab the one that was wider. Right, so you can kind of coordinate with anything. That's the fun thing about having everything that is matchy-matchy, right? So you can just see, I just kept on doing that. So I'll do this last set, and then I'll show you the difference between if you try to do it with just your ink pad versus the re-inker. And you can, like I said, you could do any shape, right? So you would just keep going long enough. And then you could see here how the heart would look. So I'll do one more set of stripes. And obviously I need more re-inker there. Because my puddle is dry. But like I said, that's just like 1 or 2 drops. So obviously we're not using very much. Okay. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to grab mulberry because that's my last color there. So if you were going to paint with your ink pad, which you could totally do instead, let me just move my mouse out of the way. It is much lighter, and then it's going to dry back even lighter than that. And so I kind of wanted more like the true colors of the color palette. That's why I went with re-inkers. And like I said, I've got them sitting there anyway. So I then would cut my circle out. Like I said, I wanted this dry because you have to remember that by doing this, it is wet. Like, it's a wet piece of paper, so it's pretty soft right now. And so I set it aside, let it dry, and then I used my thin cut and cut out my circle. So we have our circle. Let's assemble our card, and then we're going to color our flowers. And same thing, I'm going to use my re-inkers to color my flowers. So here it is. Here's my card base, right? And same thing, I did color my flowers beforehand because we're going to use re-inkers and I wanted them to dry. So my piece of mulberry is the same size as my card front. And we'll go with the true side. You know what, I'm going to just zoom out just a little bit. There we go. That's just pretty all on its own. Okay, and then I have my piece of Sweet Memories. And this is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, and then I have my frame, and like I said, this is Mist, and this is Sweet Memories, and I'm just going to attach the two together, and I wanted this piece big enough that it would be behind. You could also, if you wanted, just do the same thing and just go from here and not worry about the circle or any of the other thing, and just build your same card without the circle. I just thought it kind of added a fun little extra. So, but I think I want my frame popped up on 3D foam. This one, I popped up the circle. And this one, I popped up the heart. This time we're going to try popping up the frame. So, here we go. I'm just going to use thin 3D foam. So then if I want to pop up something else, I still can, and it won't necessarily be crazy thick. I love that there are two different thicknesses of 3D foam, thin and thick. Well, thin and regular, I guess, really, not thin and thick. Okay, so now this, and I did keep it, like I played with like the rule of thirds, right, to keep my focal point up at the top of the card. So here we go. So, and the fun thing too is that not necessarily do you have to have your stripes straight, right? You could also put them on an angle. Maybe we'll do that with this card. So I'm actually though going to adhere this one flat. Like I said, the other ones I put on 3D foam, but because I'm going to attach flowers onto here, I might want some different layers. So there we go. Okay, so like I said, you could totally just color your flowers with your tri-blends if you wanted, but again, I wanted my flowers to match perfectly, and I had my ring inkers out already, but I wanted them to flow on the flowers, like to make it easier to paint with them, and get some different variations in coloring. So I decided to play with adding clear shimmer brush to my re-inkers. So I know you can't see it, but it makes them super sparkly, and it made it very easy to paint with them. So here is my, so I still have from before, I just set it aside because I might as well use it. I just had run out of mulberry. So I have mulberry and sage and periwinkle, and I'm just going to squeeze a couple of drops of clear shimmer brush in there, and then I just took a toothpick, because it's strong color, right? Like it's not diluted at all. So, and I kind of liked this because lots of times, right, I will, if I'm doing like coloring with my ink pads, I'll dip my clear shimmer brush into the lid of, oh my goodness, and I just made like a mess. In the lid of my stamp pad, just like I did to paint, right? But then you get shimmer on the top of your ink pad, and if you don't clean it up, it can go onto your ink pad. So I thought this was just kind of, I thought this might be tidier, but just from the standpoint of your ink pads, not obviously on your work surface, because like you just saw me make a nice little mess there. Okay, so for this one, I just have, here we go, another brush. Okay, so let's move a few things out of the way. So I know you can't really see it, but they're actually like shimmery. So there's a difference. This one's sparkly and this one's not. And you can actually see it too on the pieces that I've painted. So you don't have to like coat over top or anything, right? I'm actually going to paint with the colored, basically colored shimmer brush. And then this gold is just the Spectrum Noir metallic paint markers. I decided to do that in the center. Okay, I think I'm going to sit down again. We'll see how long that lasts. But it is harder to paint standing up, I think. Okay, so I'm going to go closer so you can see. So let's do some leaf first. So I would always, whenever I'm playing with something, touch down to see how dark it is. So there I can see that's pretty dark. So I know that I wanted to start right in the darkest spots where your leaf would like be against your flowers, right? And if I want to dilute, because this has been sitting out here for a while, if I wanted to dilute it a little bit, I could totally add some more shimmer to it. And there's no water in this brush. Because I'm playing with the shimmer as my liquid, this is just an empty one. So now you could see, and then you can build up the color too, right? So I would let this dry. And if I wanted to add like sections that were darker, I went back in and added a little bit where it would be darker and let it dry again. So this is kind of just like painting with this is more like painting with your pads, but I will say the color is also stronger. So this is the last big leaf. And I'm just pulling it out. So it's more liquid than the re-inkers, right? So the clear shimmer is so pretty. So it's kind of like you could obviously do this and then paint it with shimmer brush too. It's kind of just like we're cutting out one of the steps. So there are all those leaves. So for example, let's just say I want to make this leaf a little bit darker in spots. This should be dry because it's set aside. So now I can still go back in and add like more color where it would be darker. And you have to remember too, it is darker because it's wet too, so it will dry back. So that is how I did the leaves. And then this has already got shimmer brush mixed in it. And this is the mulberry. So same thing, right? I would test to see how strong it is so that I know where I should start. I'm going to start always at my darkest points and push the color out. And it flows because it's got that clear shimmer brush in it. And so I also know these ones back here will be darker. So, and there is with like the mulberry. So I'll do this one mulberry too, and then we'll do this one with periwinkle. So same thing, I always kind of try and touch down to make sure I know what's going to come out of my brush, because obviously sometimes it can be very different depending on where you are dipping in. And I love the fact that you can even get like different colors within the same, right? Okay, so let's do this last one, periwinkle. Which probably it's not very real looking, but I think they can make flowers in any color now, because you can like recolor flowers, right? Like those Gerber daisies, when they stick food coloring in the water, and they can change the color of them. And when I went to that flower art exhibit, it was crazy some of the colors that flowers come in. Okay, so just like that. And I love, like I said, I love the fact that they're sparkly already. I know. Lori's asking, can you get the shimmer out of the water brush when you use it again? Yeah, so you saw I switched colors. And like I said, so there's no water in this water brush, so I will just clean this one at the end. But if you don't want to use your water brush, don't use your water brush. Use a normal paint, like a cheap paintbrush. This is like a super, I would obviously not use this because it's a flat brush. But if you want to do like lots of painting and not worry about it discoloring your paintbrushes, go and get just some like relatively cheap paintbrushes. And you can like, it's no different than cleaning with the painting with painting with acrylics, right? I clean my brushes with like soap and water at the end. So you can clean your water brushes too with soap and water at the end. And like I actually had to go and get some from the kitchen because I had done this earlier, right? So I cleaned them because I wasn't using them and set them aside just on a paper towel flat to dry. So I constantly mix my brushes in all sorts of things. Debbie Austin says, I keep forgetting that we can paint with our shimmer brushes. Exactly. And then so you can alter too, right? Like you could use a colored shimmer brush, but I wanted to not, you could also do that, right? So let's see. But you get a different look, and I don't think I have a brush that is the same as what I'm painting with right now in here. Right, but you can just paint with, what's this color? This is papaya, but we'll do this with papaya. So it's just a slightly different look. Yeah, Lori says, I have some cheap paint brushes. Yeah, so like if you're nervous about ruining a water brush, then just use cheap paint brushes. Like I have a big bucket downstairs but like these are full of water, but even my water brushes, I clean them out at the end. I know it doesn't look like it right now because it has because what happens is it's picking up dirty water. But look how, okay, so I don't know if you could see that, but this tip looks blue, but it is blue just because we used blue, but let's just see. But you can clean it. Like, so I would clean this, I would empty my brush and clean it with just like a little bit of dish soap and water, like on my hand like this. And then like make sure it's rinsed out well because you'll get soap left in your brush if you don't, right? And then just set it aside. And if you're going to set it aside to dry, make sure to reshape your tip. So this brush is pointed, right? So let's just say I've cleaned it, rinsed it, it's all ready to go. Then I'm going to form it back into a tip. It kind of is funny because it's still got water inside of it. But I would set this aside to dry then like that. And the tip will reform itself. Once I wash this brush, right, soap and water, squeeze it all out. So I'm squeezing out the excess and then I'm reshaping the brush so it's flat again. So I don't know if you saw at the very beginning, but it was kind of scruffy. So it will now dry like that back in the right shape. So that's just a paintbrush tip. That's just an in general paintbrush tip. Okay, so let's say instead you wanted to color with your shimmer brushes. So this is papaya. Like I said, I don't have one here that's actually the same colors as I'm using. So you can actually just paint with your shimmer brush also. The difference though, I will say, by doing it this way versus like doing it that way, is this is a lot stronger color. And it does not flow the same kind of way. So I would have a harder time getting like degrees of color. It would give you more of like a solid color, right? But you can do the same thing. Like you could just color your stamped image. I like this because it's a little more diluted because I'm really diluting the re-inker with shimmer brush instead of like taking pure color. I don't know if that makes sense. You could also, if you wanted, like paint this at the middle and then add clear shimmer brush to your shimmer brush. So if you want to just play with, like, let's say you want to paint with your shimmer brush, right? So I could paint a little bit here where I know it's going to be dark, right? Then I could squeeze out a little tiny bit. Okay, I got a lot there. And then add some clear to it, right? It's all the same thing. So this is going to be hard because now I have a lot there. And I don't really need a lot. So let's go like this. Okay, so I've just put a little tiny bit there. And let's squeeze some clear shimmer into it to make it lighter. Okay, so now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it the same way. But you can now get, good morning. Oh, you can always watch the replay, no problem. But that way you can, I'm just playing with re-inkers. You can get different variations. If you want to if you want to use a shimmer brush instead of playing with re-inkers or instead of using your ink pad, that is totally an option. But like I said, that's the difference, is by playing with the re-inker and then adding clear shimmer brush to it, I can get different degrees of color versus it is harder when you're just painting with just the shimmer brush, right? It doesn't look as realistic. It's pretty, but it doesn't look as realistic as like the different degrees I can get playing this way, right? And I can layer up very easily with this way also. So let's just say, this is my empty one. I want to get those back petals a little bit darker, right? So I can still, it's not really dry, so it might not work the best, but I can add a little bit more back in here. And it will dry back that much. It will dry back a little bit lighter too, right? And then let's say I wanted to add kind of just a little bit more in the middles, right? That, like, I feel like I have much more control playing with that kind of liquid versus just a straight shimmer brush. So see how pretty that is, right? So you've got the kind of same feeling as like painting or using your tri-blends, right? You get different variations by mixing them. It's kind of a better, like, I think it's a better way to do it, but it's totally up to you. I'm not sure. I think that I might have lost some of you just there, but that's okay. So let's just say I want to add, so like we did a little bit more on this one, I'm going to just make a few sections of my leaves a little bit darker down there. So like I said, this was completely dry, right? Because I did it earlier. So now it is shiny and different colors. And then, okay, so then I have these ones, like I said, dry and ready to go. But it's exactly the same as what I did here. I'm just going to move this out of the way because I feel like I'm going to have a bad accident. So then I wanted my centers colored too. So I thought, well, what can I do to color my centers? So, and I'm sure you all do too, I have still my Spectrum Noir metallic markers. There's also other metallic markers, or you can order them on Amazon still. And so I wanted just a little bit of gold sparkle in the middle of my flowers. So I just added, you could probably do it with shimmer brush too if you wanted, but shimmer brush, it's actually just white daisy cardstock. I did not use watercolor paper. You totally could if you wanted, but it's fine. Like, okay, so you can see now I've got 2 layers, but still it's like, it's totally fine. It's not falling apart. It's not disintegrating on me. So I just tapped the gold in the center of my flowers for a little bit of color. You could, like I said, you could totally add, you could add tri-blend marker in the middle. You could add gold shimmer brush. But the difference with gold shimmer brush is it's not going to give you a solid gold center. You could also add tri-blend in the middle if you wanted. I bet you could even, let's just try it. If you still have your Glit gloss spray, I just have to make sure I'm not confusing all my flowers. Let's add it to here. I'll tap it into the center of this flower and we'll see what happens. So because you guys all have these things, right, you might as well use them. Okay. So I am going to you could spray a little bit in here too. Just, I want a little bit of control over what I'm doing. So if I wanted to use this, what I would do is I would just look for something with a big enough tip, but I'm going to use my water brush. Okay, so Lori says she hasn't invested in water brushes, re-inkers. So I would pick, so if I was picking, this is always a fun technique with flowers. Like some of the other things you could do with re-inkers is like the puddle pad, where you put your re-inkers onto a wet wipe and that you create your ink pad that way. That's another technique that you could do with re-inkers. So if I was going to pick like what I might like to do with re-inkers, like that's just one thing that I was thinking off the top of my head. But florals are very a fun thing to do. So I would maybe pick like your favorite flower color and a green, right? If you wanted to, or like your favorite ink color that you have a stamp pad that probably you're gonna need to re-ink. So for example, Journey, I find because I use Journey a lot to stencil, like any stamp pad that you use to stencil a lot with, that might be one that I would look at getting a re-inker for, because by stenciling with the stamp pad, you use lots of ink, right? Like, because you're pulling off all the ink with your blending brush or however you're stenciling. So though any color that I find that I use to stencil a lot, that might be one that I gravitate towards getting a re-inker for. You don't need to get all of them, obviously not. Maybe just pick a few of your favorite colors. But like I said, it's fun, and you're not like, so it is extending the uses for it. Because like I said, so Mink has been around for several years, and I've had this re-inker for quite a long time, and it's still up to here. And I'm sure I've like re-inked my stamp pad a few times, right? Versus Sage, well, Sage is probably about the same spot, right? Because I would pick a green because I know I'll play with re-inkers for painting on leaves. I don't know if that makes sense, Lori, but if you have any questions, just ask. So let's just say I want to use the spray gloss in the center. You could totally do that. It's not the same kind of gold, right, as the pens, but it gives you like a yellow center to your flowers. So there's another option if you have that in your stash. I think we had that one come back at Christmas time, right? Because it's a fun one for Christmas. Okay. So I think we're ready to start assembling the card. So, like I said, I'm going to move those re-inkers away from me so I don't make a mess. I'm going to move that away, move this away, move my water to the side. See, and like now I will take this into the kitchen. I'll wash all my brushes so that they're clean and ready to go for next time. I'll reform them. I'll lay them flat to dry. And then when everything's dry, I'll bring it back into my studio. Yes, pick your favorite flower colors for sure, because it is like, it lends itself very well to painting florals. I also really like to paint flowers, so That might be just my 2 cents, but okay. Okay. So here we go. So like I said, I've done tons of videos too, and just in general coloring, painting with supplies we have. So if you're looking for other things to do, if you go check out my blog, I'm sure you could find more things. But like I said, you do have lots of options. Okay, so let's finish the card. So here's what we have so far. I like the little angle. So I'm going to add this one down here, I thought. And then I have a periwinkle one, I have a mulberry one, and then I have one leaf at the top. And then I picked up one of these die cuts and I stamped it ahead of time. But I think to bring in the gold, I thought, and I should have done this beforehand, but I'll do it now. I'm just going to, because they have kind of like a little bit of an edge on them. I'm assuming it has to do with the way they get cut. So I'm just edging it a little bit in gold. So I'm just running my marker around it. I was also thinking you could totally just sponge it. I was actually going to add some color with a blending brush, but decided I'll just do this to bring in the other colors. Okay. And then I did just quickly ran my marker over some dots that I had lying around. I did also grab the end of my Sweet Memories die cuts. So I could also color those if I wanted to add them in gold, right? Like, or you could add them in this is like a gray color as an embellishment. Those are the colors that I did. Like I said, if you wanted to just use your tri-blends, these are some of the colors that I pulled out. So I did hydrangea with vintage blue to do like the purples. And then I did dull green and actually added the vintage blue to do the leaves. And then the centers were gold brown. So that's totally, like I said, if you don't want to do this kind of painting, adventuring into getting inky, you don't have to. Okay, so I'm going to go like this. So I want this one flat. I really liked this stamp of the month. It was fun to play with. So as February is almost over, don't forget to grab the stamp of the month if you haven't. Oh shoot, you guys. So I actually stamped it crooked the first time. So I stamped on the other side and I just put the adhesive on my straight side. So we'll just take that off. Right? It's that whole cardstock has two sides. Even the die cuts have two sides. So just there like that. There we go. And then I'm going to pop this one up. Yes, I always say, like, if you are going to get some reinkers, pick your favorite ink colors. Because it's something, or your go-to, or... So, there. And I've not touched that down. So I'm going to tuck some things in. So this I want to set up first. And then this. And then this. Okay, I need to move that out of my way. It's throwing me off. So, there. See? I think it turned out pretty. So now, I'm going to get that after. It's my tape runner, but that's okay. I have more. So now, you could also, if you wanted, like do colored centers, right? I did think about that. There it is. I'm like, where is my piercing tool? Here. And here. And one last one, if I can pick it up there. Yikes. Here we go. So that's how it turned out. So like I said, I'll take some pictures of the last card and eventually they will be up on my blog. My goal will be this weekend, but I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But that's what I've got for you guys today. As always, if you have any questions, totally feel free to ask. If I don't answer them right away, I will come back and answer them as soon as I can. Have a great day, guys, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.